Peru, October 2024. I'd originally been thinking of going to Colombia, but for numerous reasons this didn't happen. Then I considered Ecuador, but I was put off going there by a book I once read about that country. So for our first and probably only trip to South America, we decided on Peru. Peru has many interesting and attractive locations, an astonishing history, and the fact that a lot of tourists go there means that it's fairly easy to get about. Ernest Hemingway was a great writer, and he was also a thirsty man. He's supposed to have drunk here at the Restaurante Cordano in Lima. We enjoyed a coffee there and an artistic avocado salad for lunch. We started in Lima and then joined a 14-day classic Peru trip organized by a company called Explore. At the end of that, we went on a Peru-Amazon 4-day excursion to the Tambopata Reserve, starting in Puerto Maldonado in the southeast of the country. Booking through Explore meant that much of the organizational aspects of the trip were taken care of, and we could sit back and be transported around the country with the assistance of Hector, our excellent Explore guide. We had a good time in Peru, as you'll see from the following scenes. These videos are not monetized in any way, but I put them on YouTube just as a record of our trips, and also in the hope that others may enjoy seeing various parts of the world, and that they might even help someone planning their own trips. All the music I've added is by various excellent musicians via the Pixabay website. Lindsay and I like going to public markets wherever we travel. At them we see local people at work, shopping, and going about their trades. There are all sorts of meats, fruit and veg on sale that we don't normally come across. One of the things we noticed at the market in Arequipa was the number of different types of potato on sale. There are reputed to be about 5,000 different potato varieties in Peru, some with dimples, some with unusual colours, some big and some small. We tried lots of them at different times during the trip, and we were never disappointed. Peru is quite a large country. We'd flown from Lima to Arequipa, but for the next part of the trip there's quite a long journey by road. I didn't mind that particularly, and spent most of the time gazing out of the minivan at the constantly changing scenery. Eventually, we got up into the Altiplano, with various volcanoes, some smoking, in the far distance. We saw guanacos, vicuñas, alpacas and llamas. But to tell you the truth, and despite being expertly coached not only by our guide Hector, but also our other local guide for the day, I still find it a bit difficult to remember the differences. Alpacas and llamas are domesticated, and guanacos and vicuñas are wild. Llamas are the biggest ones, and alpacas were on the menu in some restaurants. Let's leave it at that. It was lovely seeing them though, and there was some excitement when we spotted the rarer guanacos and vicuñas. We ascended to almost 5,000 meters, stopped, got out of the minivan, and could immediately feel the altitude. No one got physically ill, but any exercise was more difficult than usual. We spent the next several days at altitudes above 2,200 meters, and the only problem was at night time, because we'd sometimes wake up feeling short of breath and have to physically take several deep breaths to recover. After the highest point, there was a descent to the Colca Canyon, to Yankee, where we spent the night in a nice eco-lodge. The children at the local school put on a bit of a performance the next day, which was nice for them because they got out of their classroom for a while, and nice for us because they were so colourful in their outfits and they danced well. Then we were driven right up the Colca Canyon. The van stopped at the Mirador Cruz del Condor, where, if you're lucky, you can sometimes see a condor in flight. We were very lucky because 4, if not 5 condors eventually appeared. What a thrill! Condors are one of the largest flying birds and can live up to 50 years in the wild. We spent some time watching them soar above the canyon. We stopped just after Pincholo village to take in the awesome views of the canyon. Then it was time to drive to Puno, on the shores of Lake Titicaca. Quite a long drive, but once again good scenery and camelids to spot. I have to say that no one in our group was impressed with Puno, but the next day we all enjoyed a boat trip to an Ura settlement. The Uros are an indigenous group who live on floated reed islands on Lake Titicaca. It was quite an entertaining morning seeing how they lived, though the whole thing was slightly touristy. This wee girl, who was the daughter of the boatman, gave us a lovely song. Then we motored through the reeds all the way to Taquile Island, where we stayed for one night. Taquile has managed to preserve some of its Inca and even pre-Inca heritage, and nearly all of the women still wore traditional clothes. The next day we returned to Puno, where no one was tempted to investigate the town any more than they had been on the way in 2 days previously, and after another night in a hotel there, we drove a long way to the Sacred Valley. The land seemed to get more and more fertile looking the closer we got to Ollantaytambo. These are the porters who carry supplies in support of people doing the Inca Trail. We didn't do the trail. We're too old for that nowadays, unfortunately. This was a fascinating place. It's a salt mine of Maras in the Cusco province, 3,200 meters up in a sacred valley. The mines predate even the Incas. There are over 3,000 salt ponds, locally owned by about 600 families, and the ponds filled with salt water from a natural spring. The salt produced comes in 3 varieties, pink, white and brown, with pink salt being the highest quality and often used for gourmet purposes. I know all of this because I paid attention to what Hector told us. After the salt mines, we drove to the equally fascinating site of the Inca terraces at Moray. There are various theories about this place, which you can look up on the internet. I spent most of my time there trying to compose arty photos of the terraces. The next stop was the Inca ruins at Ollantaytambo. There's also a thriving outdoor market at Ollantaytambo. In the evening, we visited the community of Misminay, high up above the Sacred Valley, and I found meeting the people there quite special. Everyone, including us tourists, introduced ourselves, and then there was a wee dance session and a meal. Although they frequently put on such events for tourists, it was certainly not a jaded show.
Yes, brothers, sisters, you're welcome. Donato.
The next day was a big day, and one that most of us have been looking forward to for a long time. We spent the morning at Machu Picchu. I don't need to say anything about Machu Picchu itself, because everyone's heard of it and knows that it's one of the most iconic archaeological sites in the world. But the weather wasn't very kind to us that day, and for a while we thought we might see very little. Even our guide Hector looked a bit worried as the clouds took their time to clear, but eventually they did clear enough for us to take in one of the new 7 wonders of the world. The afternoon was free for us to explore Aguas Calientes, the approach town from Machu Picchu. Sacsayhuaman is a remarkable example of Inca architecture from the 15th century, found just outside the city of Cusco. We had 3 nights in Cusco before the main group tour finished. This was enough time for me to find the hotel that Paddy Farmer once stayed in, to discover that Cusco is where John Peel, the BBC Radio 1 DJ, passed away in 2004, and to find out that it's where Dennis Hopper stayed when filming The Last Movie. Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas had a role in that movie, and she got romantically involved with Hopper during its filming. This led to their marriage, which lasted all of 8 days. Then it was time for something completely different. We flew to Puerto Maldonado, on the other side of the Andes, for a 4-night stay at Inkaterra field station. Boy, was it hot there, but really interesting as well. We had a good time. That when I got covered in mosquito bites on the 2nd night, I discovered that the mozzie spray I'd been using was meant for children and didn't contain any DEET. We enjoyed all sorts of interesting activities at Inkaterra, including an orientation walk, a night walk, and an early morning on the Inkaterra Canopy Walkway. It was actually a bit scary being so high up in the forest canopy, but worth it to see the magnificent bird life. There were other expeditions as well, up and down the Madre de Dios River. In the Tambopata Reserve, we spotted numerous monkeys of different types. and then our guide paddled us around Lago Sandoval.
Yeah, aguaque means water. Yeah, agua, water. Yeah, aguaque.
The 3 days passed very quickly, what with the various activities, and all too soon it was time to head back into Puerto Maldonado and a flight back to Lima. Thanks for watching. See you next time.